thank you, Ashish and Abhishek, for your insightful presentation. It's an interesting viewpoint that AI is here to help us make better decisions, but humans will always be at the center of it. I'd like to take a moment and thank our Dean, Dr. Varun Nagraj sir, for joining us today. Today, we find ourselves at the threshold of another transformative journey, one powered by generative AI. As we navigate the uncharted waters of this realm, I'm delighted to invite our distinguished guests for today. We have with us, first, I would like to call upon stage Prakash Upadhyayula, Executive VP CIO at Wolters Kluwer. Prakash joined Wolters Kluwer in 2014 as CIO Global Shared Services. He led transformations in key areas like global infrastructure, enterprise systems, and cybersecurity, with a track record of in large-scale IT modernization and cloud-first initiatives. Now, let me call upon stage Mandar Kulkarni, Director CSA, Azure Infrastructure, Microsoft. Mandar is a seasoned industry expert in cloud, data center, digital transformation, IT service management, business continuity planning, with over 25 years of experience delivering complex IT solutions worldwide. Next, let me call upon stage Kunal Mathuria, Head, Data and AI Sales, Google India. Kunal is a tech leader with almost 2 decades of experience in cloud computing and data analytics. His mission is to empower enterprises to leverage data and AI for unprecedented growth. Next, let me call upon stage Dr. Subramanian Lakshman, Principal Engineer in Eightfold AI, who's driving strategic products related to talent management and job intelligence. He brings nearly 2 decades of diverse industry experience across domains like networking, storage, distributed systems, web, mobile apps, and machine learning. And now, let me invite Professor Milind Kamath, Information Management and Analytics. He also chairs the Global Management Program. He brings over 35 years of industry experience, including roles such as CEO of Atos India. His research area interests in new generation digital technologies, social media marketing, and big data mining. Now, let me invite the moderator for panel discussion, Professor Shailja Jha, Department Chair, Information Management and Analytics from SPJMR. She brings with her 2 decades of information technology global consulting experience with firms such as Wipro, Cognizant, and Infosys. Besides a robust corporate background, she has also served as a civil servant for the Government of India. I would request Professor to lead the panel discussion now.
I welcome my fellow panelists and hope we have a nice 40 minutes discussing and doing rounds of Q&A around generative AI. And coming after our keynote, brilliant keynote, and our student presentation, let's hope we have something for our students here as well. So this panel discussion is largely going to be around applications of generative AI, more from the perspective of how you see it happening in your company, your industry, the world around you. There'll also be questions around India implementations, India-specific opportunities that it presents. Also skills that are necessary, your advice to MBA students. And lastly, given that technology seems to be hurtling faster than the regulatory framework, how do you see the regulations evolve from your perspective? Does that sound fair? So I'll start with you first, Prakash, and we'll probably go in this sequence. And as you can see, I'm not a professional moderator. So
we're not professional panelists either.
So Prakash, to you first. What do you see as the applications of generative AI in the industry that you see around you and the ecosystem that you see around you? And when you give your answers, you can talk in terms of the immediate term as also the intermediate term, because I'm sure a lot of things will not pan out in just 1 to 2 years context. So.
Thank you for having me, and thanks for the earlier presentation from Tiger Analytics. That was really cool. Thank you. I think what Pradeep was saying is important and very relevant. The industries or the use cases he was talking about is what is really happening, at least from where I sit and where I see. Customer service is going to be completely disrupted. And it gave example of BPOs and the contact center and the call centers. That's going to change tremendously. definitely we are looking at that as well in how we should be changing that interaction with our customers, but still have that human interaction component. And that probably will be the most difficult aspect of it, to provide the capabilities while keeping that human touch. From our organization point of view, we are a B2B mostly, not B2C. So B2B will have a different capability in mind or different interaction models that will get built, whereas B2C will be even more, I'll call it different. So it's a different mindset more than anything else. We work with accountants and the lawyers and the financial institutions. So where mostly um, you're providing capabilities for them to utilize for their customers, because we are B2B, right? So if I deal with the accountant, accountant is the one who is dealing with the actual individuals who are filing taxes, for example, or their things. So what type of things that they need to offer to their customers is what is going to change for us. And I know everybody talked about the code generation and stuff like that. So that pretty much will become a norm. So I'm not going to as much spend time on it. But I think every interaction or every task in your workflow, whether it is at a personal level or it is an organizational level, that is what is going to get impacted. And the reason I think he was talking about ChatGPTs cannot tell jokes. I'm thinking it still can tell jokes, but we don't like its jokes. That's it, I think. So that's probably more than anything else. And the reason it became really same thing with the streams, it became that far-reaching is because it's B2C. And there's still a lot of work being done in B2B. We just are not able to see the value of that. Okay, that's okay. Somebody else is having another
Someone
panel
has video
conversation.
on.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I think it'll be more than anything else. That's what I think is the focus for at least, and I see as a long term or a short term on how organizations change. We are focusing on the workflow of of our customers. That's where the primary prioritization at this point is for us.
So workflow of product users
Right.
who at your customer end.
Right.
So
So
in the
everything they
intermediate
do
term.
with their interactions,
True.
how can we provide
True.
either insights or information that they can make decisions on?
Sure.
Okay, whether it's accountant or a lawyer, a lot of content. So search
Yeah.
is
It's
going to be
very
huge.
content heavy.
And tax from an accountant, it is very personalized because I might see patterns, but what does this mean for you as an individual who I'm working with? What is it for me in that particular? So we have different spectrum that we have to look at, and then internal users, because I think you mentioned about experience. And same thing for you. You're a professor, but you're in this university. While you're taking care of the students, you're also an individual that university has to take care of because you're a customer for the university. And so like that, we also have to work with our enterprise employees, consultants who work with us. I'll have to think about their experience, how they interacted, and what are they doing. So multifaceted. At least if you think of a problem, you think of it as a bad thing. I really think of it as a good opportunity rather than a problem. Good opportunity that we can improve lives.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Prakash. To you, Mandar, the cloud guys seem to be on the forefront of pushing a lot of this technology. So, your perspective on what you think are the immediate or intermediate term applications of generative AI, and Microsoft seems to be with their investments in OpenAI way ahead of many others.
Right. So I have two different perspectives. First, I'll quote the OpenAI CEO Sam Altman. Right. He mentioned that AI, Gen AI or AI in general, is overhyped in the short term and underhyped in the long term. Right. And that's probably because of consumerization of generative AI through ChatGPT. Right. Anything which is consumerized, literally billions of people use it, so it probably becomes more popular than some of the B2B use cases, right? So what we are seeing in the industry is that that's becoming very popular. Gen AI, because you and I can use it on Bing or on everywhere we can use that, like Chat GPT, we can use it, right? So it's becoming very popular. There is a hype on it. But over a period of time, that will become mainstream the way search, right? Google made search mainstream, right? Now we don't store information, or even our smartphones where we don't keep the numbers in our mind anymore, we just store it, right? I think that hype will become mainstream. I will not say it will come down, but that will become way we work in personal life. And that's probably where two things would happen. One, more maturity will come in AI, and more mature adoption will happen in the industry, right? And I believe both of the things will actually happen more or less around the same time, right? And we saw this trend. It's not the first time we are seeing this. It happened in cloud. It has certainly happened in IoT, right? If you go maybe 10, 15 years back, most of the IoT use cases, when people introduced IoT, were like your refrigerator can order milk if you are running out. Nobody is doing that, right? Refrigerators have become smarter, but they are not ordering milk on our behalf, right? Most of the IoT actually happened when industrial IoT use cases become popular. And that's where what is going to happen on AI is essentially two things. One, Gen AI is probably start of AI, right? It's not certainly the end, or it's not certainly in the middle. So two things would happen. One, AI will move on from Gen AI, and it will do much more things that we are starting seeing maturing in the industry. That's number one. Number two, huge maturity in industry or businesses adopting AI will happen, and that will again happen first in Gen AI, but it will happen all across, right? I think those two things will really change the face. Some of the use cases, I think a lot of people already talked about use cases, right? But one of the key things that Microsoft focused on is what we call as distribution channels, right? And ChatGPT is probably the most popular distribution channel of generative AI, right? Until now, AI was largely used by companies who had a lot of developer power, right? They can embed AI into their applications, or as Pradeep mentioned, right, invite companies like them and do specific use cases. What ChatGPT did is democratizing the AI, make it more consumer, right? Now, there are strong trends that are happening. For example, what Microsoft is doing is, as I said, distribution channel. So all our tools, whether it is GitHub, whether it is Microsoft 365, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, everywhere you are seeing the embedding of GPT, embedding of OpenAI or generative AI, which is happening, right? And that will continue, right? And that you will see, of course, not only from Microsoft, but Google and practically every product company. There is no IT company to start with will actually not use power of it, and then it will go beyond, right? We will, as you rightly said, right, we will be the first one because we want to eat our own dog food, so we want to prove that this works. But practically every company will actually think about use cases both for internal stakeholders as well as their customers. It will start with the customer support creative thing, but I'm already seeing a lot of very interesting use cases happening. Certainly, customer engagement is the number one that we are seeing, but there are more business impact use cases. Prakash mentioned on the legal thing, right? Now, there is ton of document that summarization is a huge business impact, because it is not only saving, right? There are certain things that you cannot humanly do. And I think that's where AI will challenge what you can do, rather than can we do it better, can we do it with less people. Typically everything starts with that, right? In industry, when cloud came, people were talking about how much I can save. Nobody's talking of that today. I think that is the real thing. What jobs AI will create, or how AI will change industry today, people like us, at least the 40 plus people, right, cannot imagine that. So I think that's where it is very important to really throw out your thought process and think about what I want to solve and how do I use Gen AI or how do I use AI, rather than saying, okay, this is the job that I do, how can it improve? I think real innovation in jobs would come through that rather than incremental improvement.
Good. Thank you so much, Mandar. Kunal, you're from Google, and it's so both of you are sitting together. What's your what is?
Interestingly, we work together as
I know
well.
you're friends. So, what's your take on this? Where do you see the and Google has always been on the forefront of a lot of these. Where do you see the immediate and the intermediate applications?
So I put this in three horizons, right? Horizon one, which is the nearest to us, horizon two, which is midterm, and then horizon three. Uh, I think horizon one is where we're looking at Gen AI as the application, as a technology in itself, and people are going to use it for small stuff, get things done faster, get more time to market, making it shorter. Creatives, for example, can be done much faster. Text generation can be done much faster, where you're using Gen AI as its own application. Horizon 2 is what I think both of my other panelists spoke about, where Gen AI becomes more of an enabler. It's a bolt on to existing workflows, existing applications, etc. And it's helping you either gain efficiencies or be more creative within those applications. And then in Horizon 3, where AI in general, which is how everyone started, right? General intelligence becomes all pervasive. It's part of our daily lives. We don't even notice it. It's like electricity was in 1900s, right? I mean, I don't know whether electricity is as exciting as Gen AI today. I don't know how many. There'll be a lot of electrical engineers in the room, I'm sure, but none of them want to get into a power plant and work there. So, that's the horizon three. From a jobs market perspective, also, I think it's going to follow the same trend. Uh, Horizon one, a lot of us thought that low, menial, laborious jobs will get automated. Well, that's not happening. It's the high-end creative jobs that are getting eliminated. And within that, yes, some of the, like, I don't like to use the word, but a lot of the code junkie work that happens in a lot of IT companies in India do that is going to get more efficient. I wouldn't say it's going to get eliminated. It's going to get much more efficient. Will not require as many people doing that sort of jobs. Paralegals in law firms, a lot of the stuff that they do is just pure research. A senior lawyer can just ask that question to an AI and get those answers very easily. Some of the tax filing stuff, right, just going through compliances, right, that all can be automated. So a lot of those high-end knowledge jobs in the near term, but at the lower end of the spectrum of the top, are going to get more efficient. Let me not use the word eliminated. But as we go to Horizon 2, there'll be new jobs being created there where you would want to figure out how can I add value to an existing process because of my knowledge of AI, right? So there'll be areas where you need UX designers who can craft a journey using AI at the front end. You'd need business analysts who know how to make a process more efficient by integrating UI. So again, that will lead to a bunch of new jobs which are created, which we don't even know. Prompt engineering, for example. I mean, one of the biggest problems for LLM is and integration into workflows is you need standard results. Unless you have the right prompt, it can give you varied results for every prompt that you put in. So prompt engineering is a job which I see in this thing. And then horizon 3, again, from a jobs perspective, this will not matter. You will study Gen AI, but probably do quantum computing or whatever is there at that point of time, right? That's my view over the three horizons.
Thank you. Thanks. Srinivas, your perspective on where you think.
Sure. So I'm going to bring in two perspectives, right? I think I'm the only engineer on the stage right now. I know in your previous lives you have been software engineers. So I want to bring in two perspectives. One is as a software engineer who has been practicing this for the last 20 years. The other one is representing the industry where my company is, which is in the employment industry. So to talk about software engineering, because Pradeep and one of your students also mentioned that as a prime industry for disruption. How many of you have been a software engineer before joining this program? Yeah? A lot of you, right? So how many of you thought coding is going to be your primary job day in and day out? And I'm sure all of you were disappointed, right? Yes. So that's the reality, right? So a lot more than coding, there's a lot more going into being a software engineer, talking to a lot of stakeholders, writing test cases, understanding the requirements, understanding the historical context and the background context of your systems and all that. Ultimately, you spend maybe 30 minutes or 2 hours a day writing code if you're working for a big company, right? If you're working for a small size startup like ours, you're probably doing a lot more coding. But so I believe even I don't think AI or generative AI is right now in a stage where it can take away all of that complexity. If at all it's going to do anything, it's going to take out the most interesting part of your job, which is 30 minutes or 1 hour of writing code. But even there, I have my doubts, right? Because there's a reality check here, which is, let's say magically, ChatGPT is able to generate all the code that I want. We are not going to be able to check that into the production, right? There's going to be a lot more code review and manual check. In fact, code review is a lot more cognitive load and time consuming. Sure, you can write code and have generative AI review code for you, or you can have LLMs write code for you and then you can review. Either way, the manual aspect of it is not going to go away anytime soon, right? So I don't, the boilerplate code, right? We are already doing that even before generative AI came about. Nobody wrote all this boilerplate code, framework code, and all that. The open secret is that we all copy and paste code from the web, right? If you know how to do Google search, you'll get the code. But a lot of times the complexity is in fitting it into what you already have, right? This is where I don't think generative AI is anywhere close to replacing engineers. But as Pradeep said, it's all about integration. As we integrate more into existing systems, that can come about, but right now it doesn't look that way. On a lighter note, right, taking this and applying it to another industry, one of our head recruiters came in late to our party, one of our parties, and we said, hey, Pavan, AI is going to take your job, right? He said, sure, AI will quit in a week. That's what he said, right? So he sees a lot more complexity than what AI can do right now, right? So that's a reality check. On a perspective from my own industry, employment industry, and I think this generalizes beyond my industry, right? For any company that's doing web-based applications or mobile apps, the interface is going to change. The UI, filling forms, drop downs, and all that is going to change, right? So that's what we are focused on through our entire product line. We have co-pilots helping people do things much more efficiently than searching for what to do with our UI, right? A different way to express yourself and make us understand what you want. That's our immediate opportunity. The other place where we are focusing on is this is about increasing the efficiency of existing workflows. The second focus is on enabling new workflows. For example, we have a product line called Workforce Exchange, which is a job exchange that governments and public agencies put up to help unemployed people. If you look at our statistics, less than 10% of the candidates have a resume. They even have a problem writing a good resume. Most of the time is spent in talking to a counselor or counselor talking to this candidate, trying to understand his background, what is this person good at, and all that. That's where we think changing the interface, making it conversational, coming up with a virtual counselor to help these candidates, right, enabling new workflows. We see these are the two immediate opportunities for us with generative AI.
Thank you, Srinivas.
Ma'am, if I may just weigh
yes,
in,
please.
right?
Yeah.
He made a very, very important point. And Bill Gates said this very nicely, that we spend years learning how to talk to computers, right? It's high time that computers learn how to talk to humans, right? And that's an important point because currently people who talk to computers are software engineers or IT pros, right? The access to that technology is limited. I think mobile democratizes that to a lot of extent. But rather than somebody typing, which is largely limited to English and maybe few languages, if somebody can just pick up the phone and talk, and the generative AI can build a profile, right? I think it makes a lot of things more accessible. So there is another aspect of Gen AI that it would actually make accessibility to literally large population which doesn't have. So that's an important aspect of AI.
Thanks, Srinivas. That was a very good perspective, actually, a different perspective. Thanks. I move to Milind Kamath, who's been working a lot in this space, researching in the space. Milind, what is your perspective? You could even sum up the perspectives of the other gentlemen. So, because, yeah.
No, my no, I will restrict my perspective because I am last 2 years in the education, right? And I run the quiz on my webinars. What is common between education and Gen AI? And a lot of people fumble on that, right? And the commonality between these two is text, because all education today is textbooks. The text is common there. And if text is there in the education, that means Gen AI will disrupt. So I assume the educational will be a large disruptions that I expect and that I'm experiencing, because online, I think first level of nonlinear disruption happened because online. I think we are in for a second level of disruption. The reason for that is present the way student learn and professor teaches is very linear. For example, in our courses, it is 18 courses. We start in a very linear way. And for example, the software one, data science course, Python learning. Do we have to teach those 18 sessions today the way data science is taught? I ran a webinar other day and we coined a term called agile learning, because you don't have to teach them syntax, that particular flow of variables, flows, because that it will do. Now you have to do logical thinking, critical thinking, that is what will require. So my own thinking, teaching and learning will undergo a huge change. That is no doubt, and it will be very fast because the text is common between Gen AI and educational systems. The second text is common is between research and Gen AI. So I guess research will be for huge disruption. Literature reviews is all text reading. Okay, so obviously that will go big disruption. The second part, which was mentioned in literature, all the research papers have equations, conclusions, statistical results, and the variables used. You give it to generative AI, it will give you now synthetic data, which is hidden by many things under the Data Privacy Act. It will generate a new data set. So you will have another synthetic data, perhaps validity is big issue, because I was talking to an international professor whether synthetic data could be an additional validity test for an research hypothesis. He asked me, how do you do the validity part, right? So I think research is one area which productivity will zoom pretty high. The traditional research will be, perhaps will be very unproductive, is what my view is. The third part, which is related in that, is a lot of traditional research with respect to the text is on word counting. The meaning was missing. If you see the constructs which are there, how do you get the construct related to human behavior on social media? Now, Gen AI will give you a classification with respect to meaning because it is able to have a semantic understanding. So your classification will be much richer. For example, corporate communications. Now you can mine much better regarding the correlation between corporate communication and financial result and non-financial results. Perhaps that opportunity was not there. And you can expand that from government communication and citizen engagement, student engagement versus professors' delivery. And the last part I feel is personalization. Because today in the classrooms, we have, one-to-many and it is equal. Tomorrow you will have an app where personalized text will be generated the way it was mentioned by Pradeep, the ad comes. So the same context, every person will get differently on his app based on his learning ability. So I think education will be in for a big disruption.
Shailaja, if I may add to what Milind, I'm extremely passionate about teaching.
Sure.
And I really think that what you said is going to be true. And I can think about movie Three Idiots, and where the classroom situation is there, because anybody can learn definition, like you said, text or formulas and things like that. But how does it? What is the practical use of the knowledge you're learning is going to be a big differentiator in the teaching world. So as the teaching as we know, the learnings as we know, the universities as we know. I know we haven't talked about it, but you'll face the biggest disruptions in the coming years. So you might have this panel discussion in 2 years from now, but we are not going to be really sitting here. We might be sitting in our respective homes in whichever cities we are in, and that's what I think you'll see in the coming 2 years.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Just to add this point, because I was working on a prototype on a engineering education disruption on augmented reality on mobile with generative AI and how to teach complex subject like fluid mechanics. And you can see a big disruption in that area, how student will learn because it is more engaging for that. So disruptions are made.
Thanks, Milind. Thank you so much. Now I'll ask specific questions because I think, to Prakash, since you run an organization, a development organization, how much, I mean, most companies do not today have the internal capabilities. Maybe they have it in different measures of exploiting generative AI, both from a perspective of skills within the organization as also the quantum of data that is required to exploit generative AI. So what are your thoughts on that? And what do you think organizations should do to quickly, latch on and be able to exploit generative AI?
That's a very good question. I think skilling is going to be a challenge regardless of which organization you're part of, small, big, large, won't matter. And like any other new technology or new capability that comes out in the market or in the world, you have to take a look at what you have, at who you have, and you'll look at those few pioneers who are wanting to do things different and apply rather than traditional people who'll say, I think, I'm sorry, I forgot your name, Subramaniam. Yes, what he mentioned. I call myself a developer, but I'm going to actually, I think it'll be a good debate with him after later on one-on-one because I'm a hardcore developer. But I think my job will be eliminated, and on the opposite spectrum of what he's thinking. But that's okay. It'll be a fun conversation. But I think from a technology point of view, I don't think we have a choice but to look at all our organizations and help each individuals look at it. I'll call it upskilling, but upskilling is not the right word for it. But I think we don't have a choice but to look at it. The data exposure that you have.
Maybe your organization has more data compared to others. Right?
We have a lot of data on that,
Yes.
and we have a lot of content, we have a lot of data. So the data is not going to be a challenge for us.
Okay.
But the challenge is going to be, this is a parallel path. While one, you have to continue to serve what you're serving your customers, but the second path is how do you disrupt that model? So upskilling is not a choice. And no single company or any organization will have those people sitting there for you. We don't have skills with what even today was talking about from a developer's point of view. You don't have those skills enough to meet your demand today. Forget about the new capability, right? So I strongly believe in helping each individual look at this, and that's why I said I was passionate about teaching, and because I want each individual to go look at it and develop it on their own, whether it is through organizations or a personal goal of theirs.
Thank you. Thank you.
If we can
Sure,
if we can weigh in
Srinivas.
on, because he mentioned upskilling, right?
Uh-huh.
So we being in the employment industry, we are seeing a lot of interest from a lot of our enterprise customers. Reskilling and upskilling is a big deal. Our entire product line, talent management, is geared towards that because enterprises want to be agile. It's not just in the tech industry, right? Even energy industry, green sustainability skill sets are changing. So enterprises want to be agile. They want to repurpose their existing personnel and for the employees and workforce in general, it's a survival question. So shelf life of a skill has been continuously declining, and it's going to be declining even more. So
Thanks, Srinivas. I'll quickly come to I'll quickly come to a question for both Mandar and Kunal. Since they're in the marketplace, they're selling in that marketplace. What do you see as the adoption of generative AI in the Indian context? One, right? I mean, more specific to India. And two, do you think the companies are really ready to adopt generative AI? Talk to the Indian context.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Strictly on Indian context, I think everybody, in my opinion, right now is in a pilot, or maybe few of them have put in production. But I have not met a customer in last at least 2 to 3 months who's not doing something on AI, something on Gen AI, right? Everybody is doing it, and probably Gen AI made AI adoption little simpler. So people actually are saying the more complicated AI work I'll do it little later, or I'll leave it to the more analyst, right? But I'll adopt Gen AI, right? So two reasons. One is that a little bit easier, and secondly is also it touches the customer immediately, right? So practically everybody is doing it. The degree of what they are doing differs, right? For example, one of the very large coffee company in India, right? They are changing the way they talk to their customers. They are using GenAI, so it's very personalized. I think sir also talked about personalization, right? So the communication is very personal rather than push message that we have this offer. So it starts from that as a simple thing, all the way up to we are seeing cases of summarization and cases of where large documents are now unlocked, right? Practically everybody is doing something. How many of them are production? I think it's a very early stage. Production is nascent, but the pace is very fast. So one of the most I should not be surprising thing, but one of the most different thing that in technology that we are seeing this time is that the adoption rate is very, very fast, and that's probably because the Gen AI adoption is driven from the board rather than just the tech. So it's not a just a tech fad, but boards are asking what are you doing on this, right? So that's why we are seeing a lot. And in next 6 months, in 2023, we will see a lot of Indian companies come with at least the initial use cases of customer interaction and all of that, right? We will see that definitely. Practically, every large corporate you will see something coming out.
sure, thanks.
So views are similar, but I'll break it up by industry. So there are certain industries where we're seeing production use cases, and then there are others where what I call are toys. Kids love toys. You get them a new toy, they will play with it. It'll have a short span of attention, and then you don't know where is it.
We call them
So,
fashionistas.
yeah, fashionistas, kids toys, whatever. But so in certain industry, Gen AI is like a toy right now. People are playing with it, trying to feel it, this is. Everyone's talking about it. I need to talk about it. I need to get on stage and talk about it, right? But there are certain industries where this is making an immediate impact, especially on media. I don't think so. Right now, there is a creative agency or a media house who's not seriously looking at this, and because this is going to have an immediate impact on that, right? And given I'm Google, you can't not talk about ads, right? So one of the things in ads is the creatives, right, that you put out. There is an immediate impact on that. So we're working with one of the largest food delivery apps in the country, who also happens to operate a lot of dark stores, and they want to do hyper personalization, and they're cluster based. So they may be running a campaign, let's say on Rin, for their dark stores in North, and there may be a campaign on pizzas in the South cluster, and they need a lot of creatives for that personalized campaign, and you need to have speed around that. Right now, the current process is that it goes back to a central team. The team goes and photographs that product, creates the creative, sends them back, goes through approval. By the time, right, the campaign's delayed. With Gen AI, we're trying to get the business user, the cluster head there, to generate it immediately, put it into a workflow, let the creative central team just approve it, disapprove it. Just brings in more efficiency, right? Immediate impact. Similarly, on the coding side, right? I mean, I am completely with him. I can also have a debate with you. We're seeing these in the field right now, working with IT services organization, where the sheer pace of the project work that they had, their timeline of 8-9 months with help from generative AI code generation, they're able to squeeze that down much further. Yes, it does involve a lot of testing because you don't know this code is working or no. We've seen instances where uh, we were rewriting functions using Gen AI for someone, and the code hallucinated. So it was generating stuff, referring back to stuff which didn't exist. So the code looks very genuine at first glance, but it's referring to stuff which didn't even exist. So there'll be a lot of testing, but those are areas where we are seeing immediate impacts. And then there's stuff on, come talk to me, tell me what you can do for us. I have a lot of data. But one thing that we've been pushing a lot of our customers is if you really want to have or see GenAI making an impact in your business, get your data strategy in place, right? He happened to mention that they have a lot of data. You'd be surprised, a lot of enterprises in India don't collect the data. If they do collect the data, it's not catalog, the metadata is not there, the lineage is not there, and Gen AI is as good as what you feed it in, right? Garbage in, garbage out. So if you feed it garbage in, you're going to get garbage out. So those are the things that we are seeing.
Yeah,
Ma'am,
I think.
if I may just add, because you mentioned media, right? There is a personal level. I had interacted with somebody. Very interesting use case. I don't know whether it will ever become mainstream, but you do photo shoots, right? You involve a very popular model and you do photo shoots for fashion and all that, right? So this person actually built a way that they will use the open images that are available and do Gen AI based complete photo shoot, right? And I said that's not actually legal, that's not right, you can't use it. So that is for actually you go and then repeat that photo shoot, so rather than sketching it and all that.
Yeah.
So
It
basically
becomes a storyboarding.
storyboarding,
Yes.
and I saw that entire thing right before developed by Gen AI, and in actual it was fantastic. So there are ideas that are, I don't know whether it is practical use case, but very nice use cases that are coming in.
This is actually reality. I think any one of you can either Google it or YouTube it, both Google properties. But there is a nice Cadbury ad of Shah Rukh Khan, and
Yeah.
it's hyper
Artificially
personalized.
generated.
Yes. So
Yes.
what they've done is they've used Gen AI to just change his lips to refer to a local store in which. So, for example, you're looking at that ad
Diwali sweets
on
ad, yeah.
if you're looking at that ad on YouTube from, let's say, Bareilly, there's a store in Bareilly which is part of that, and Shah Rukh refers to that store. And it's very unlikely that sitting in Bombay you would know that store, but if you're in Bareilly, you would know that store. And the content there, the lip sync is AI driven, right? So we're seeing this in the wild. To Mandar's point, we've seen creatives being so the whole process of storyboarding is, if you're aware of it, it's fairly time consuming, is because the client never likes the first output that comes out. So there is lots of iteration, and these iterations take a lot of months. There are artists, there are others who are involved. There are many handoffs in that process. Now imagine you are an editor or a writer, right, who's writing the script for that ad. You have an idea, you go to the Gen AI interface, put that in, it creates the creatives, it creates the text, it creates the Instagram post, it creates the visuals, everything. Take a draft of it, send it. By evening, you get another one. Okay, I'll send you another one tomorrow. It's just fast. Right? So we're seeing that in the wild now.
Thank you so much. My last question, it's a speed round. You could quickly answer it. Basically, it's two questions. And I'll start with Prakash again and we'll come all this way. One being, if you were to advise MBA students on what skills they need to now develop, given the new age that's coming, the generative AI and the AI, what would your advice be? One. Two, do you think regulation will ever be able to keep pace with technology?
First one, learn to learn.
Sure.
And second one way or the other, regulations will put guardrails. Governments will do that. Nothing else. Governments will do that through regionalization that is happening around the world. Either it is GDPR, China PIPL, or now that you data laws passed by Indian government or the FedRAMP for the US government. all those compliance will end up regionalization rather than globalization.
So if we refer back to the Sam Altman meeting with the Subjudicial Committee of the Congress, to most questions they kept raising, he kept saying, hey, you need to figure out regulation. So tech is moving very fast. I don't know who's thinking about the regulations. Back to the same problem. Yeah, Mandar.
I think that's a perennial problem, right? Most of the cases, regulation actually follow tech. Sometimes it is so prohibitive that the tech actually gets limited. But I've not seen the regulation to be ahead of tech generally, right? But I'm aligned to what Prakash mentioned. The guardrails will come, and there are companies like Microsoft which are actually actively advocating. Brad, our chief general counsel and president, was in India, and he actually put out the responsible AI agenda for India. So we have a 6 principle agenda that Microsoft promotes a lot. We are actively encouraging regulations, because what happens is when there is no guardrails, then you actually err on the side of caution sometimes too much, because when the regulations come, it is sometimes will hit you very hard. So we're actually advocating that, right? It's required because while all of us work for certain company, we are also individuals, right? So we don't want our data to be used by AI, our data to be exposed. So it's required. The sooner it comes, better, but also it has to be pragmatic. It's the nascent technology that needs some more water.
Thank you. Kunal.
I mean, I'll take the regulation part first. Absolutely. I mean, governments will have to step in and put some regulations around this, specifically like the example, a keynote speaker gave around bias, right? Loans. I don't want a bias data set to not disburse loans to a certain section of society, or not being able to understand why I was denied a loan, explainability, right? Or the AI being used to, create societal disharmony because you created content which causes that. So regulations would need to come in. Don't know when or how, in what form they'll come in. We've got 7, by the way, responsibility principles. So Google in 2018 came up with 7 AI responsibility principles, where we not use it, we'll only use it for public good. We'll keep privacy up front. We'll be able to explain, etc. So there are 7 of them. But I do strongly believe that self-regulation is not enough. This is a technology which has got societal impact too high for governments to not step in. Skilling, I think the field is so new, there are no experts. There are no validations. Like you come to SPJMR and you get validation that, okay, you know business, you know MBA, you get a degree. There's nothing in Gen AI. Go open up Microsoft Azure, go open up GCP. We're living in an era where you have instant access to this technology with hardly any money. I think it's good investment. Don't spend that money on crypto. Take that money and put it on understanding Gen AI. Go download Stable Diffusion on a desktop. Run that, understand that. I am sure it will pay much more returns in your career than buying 1 or 2 fraction bitcoins or something like that.
Thank you, Subramanian. Your thoughts?
So on what is the skill you should pick up, right? I totally agree with
And these are MBA students, actually.
Yes.
So they are not engineers, but they've been engineers in the past life. So what's your advice? I mean, you want to hear.
So I totally agree with my first panelist here, right? There's nothing like static set of skills you're going to pick up. You're always going to be expected to learn newer and newer things. So the best skill you can pick up is the ability to learn, right? That's going to be very essential. I'm very sorry to say this sitting in a college environment, but your college degree is going to help bring you up to speed with the current trend and get a foot in the door, right? But beyond that, you'll have to repeatedly demonstrate your ability to learn and perform, right? You're going to be continuously evaluated until you retire, right? That's for sure. So I'm a little bit pessimistic here, but that's the truth, right? But my personal honest advice here is days of living on a salary is gone. Everybody should own some part of the business that owns machines, right? Maybe it's 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 40 years from now, I don't know when, but you need to own some part of the business that uses machines and models, right? So that's one. On regulations, what we are seeing is definitely there are some established industries. Our industry, employment industry, for example, already has regulations in place, not specifically AI, but around employment opportunities and how you make your decisions. Now they are having special focus on AI. The state of New York, for example, requires companies to have a third-party inspection and certification on the tools you use for your employment decision, right? So they are catching up, but it's not going to be at a speed where the technology is evolving. I think the technology is evolving primarily because of competition. It's fueled by competition, the evil side of capitalism, right? And I honestly don't know where this is all going to go, but that's my honest perspective here.
Thanks. Thank you. Last question to you, Milind. And what are your thoughts?
No, regulation, if you see in the physical world, in the atom world, it was driven by creating equality, making sure that social development happens. So if governments are driven for regulation for that particular cause, in digital world, the basic is data. So I think government will be hyperactive in creating regulation, because that mine, if you keep it open, those governments will be different, right? So they will be after that particular mine in the digital world. Perhaps India was late, China was earlier, but that will come. So that is the first part of regulation, because that was the driver in the physical age. So I think that will be the driver in the digital age. Secondly, with respect to skill, my perspective is there are many opportunities will open for all the students here, because what Gen AI will do is equality. Because now the access to learning, or perhaps whatever disparity you have in the classrooms or opportunities in the employment, that will get equalized, because you can build new skills very easily. It's much easier than what online learning is. So I think you should follow your passion and build the skills what you love. Then you will be, sky's the limit. That's what I think.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Milind. We wrapped up our questions here. We are open for a couple of audience questions. So if there are any questions from the audience for any of our panelists.
Thank you for the insightful sessions. My question is to Mr. Manda regarding the application of generative AI in the cloud industry. How these two technologies can go hand in hand to provide different applications.
So two perspectives. Number one, Gen AI is basically based on cloud, right? And the reason for that is the amount of data that it needs to process, right? Or to process that data, the kind of compute power it needs. It's very, very difficult to do it anywhere apart from cloud. So Gen AI or a lot of newer models that would come would actually be cloud native. They would be on cloud. So you can tap into them, but wherever you tap into them on mobile, on premise, but they would be on cloud, clearly. That's number one. Number two, so that's how Gen AI would work. But applications of Gen AI, right? So you will see almost every application that is there, right? Whether it is the SaaS application like Microsoft Office or Google Workspace or any other, or even SAPs and all that. Practically everybody will figure out a way to integrate Gen AI into it. So there are two things which are going to happen. One, established application will actually integrate Gen AI into them, but opportunities for newer applications to come, right? Like ChatGPT. I treat ChatGPT as an application, right? It uses GPT 3.5 or GPT 4 as the back, right? It's an interface. So the opportunity for a lot of you is to figure out what's that application that I can use, that I can build using GPT, right? Or LLM or whatever else that is there, right? So that's the thing. Every application that you are using today will actually get ultimately a GPT or a Gen AI interface, Gen AI integration. But the key for you to think is what new application you can build using it. That's the key thing that I'll leave you with. Thanks.
Thank you. You want the mic? Or anyone from there? Yeah, please. Yeah.
A question for Kunal. So, how's your job getting disrupted? Now, you had sales.
Well, I always fear this. And this is my personal view, and this is not Google's view. Let me put that disclaimer up front there. when I started my career, a lot of IT infrastructure and software sales was very capital intensive. There were large purchases planned well in advance. The sales cycle was very long. Mandar can agree with me. I think he's had more experience on that side. And you needed folks who could build relationships and who'd be, pallies and golf partners to the CEOs to kind of get them to fork out that money. But increasing in the last decade or so, software and hardware sales has become services sales. The ticket size has become smaller, it's become OPEX led. The decision making, because it's not CAPEX intensive, has shifted from the very top office to somewhere in between where the practitioner, the person who's actually building this, takes calls. So, you need to be very thorough. B, this sale is much faster. The sales cycles become much smaller. It's very fast. The second piece is a lot of our customers are already on the cloud now. One of the biggest things that you would hire a sales guy for was his knowledge of either the market or the target customer in terms of what are they running, what are the issues, etc. Well, if you have all your customers running on cloud, the platform provider, just purely looking at the metadata, knows almost everything. He may actually be able to predict how your business is growing better than you is because your consumption is directly related to what your growth is. So when you have all of that metadata, I don't need very high-end people. I just need a human to go and get that transaction going, right? Just that last mile. So I think the last mile is not going to go away, but what I fear in the next 5 to 6 years, IT information sales is going to be more like automobile sales. If you've gone to an automobile dealer, most likely the guy who's servicing you at that point has got less knowledge about that car than you because you've done all of the research. You know the horsepower, you know the shades, you practically know everything that you want, but you need to still go to close that transaction, and the company also has to provide that interface. So it's dangerous.
Couldn't have said better. Very nice. And that's what we are practicing. I think we have both our companies work very in a similar pattern, and I think it's a very honest and appropriate answer. Skill levels are changing, the cycles are changing, and no big deals, right? Most of the sales guys get high on multi-million-dollar deal. That's not reality now. It's a continuous incremental sales than a big deal and you go and party. No longer true.
Last question from the audience. One question? Yeah.
Good afternoon, panelists. So my question is regarding the challenges that are involved in training and deploying large-scale AI systems like GPT and BERT. First of all, my question comes from these are continuously evolving systems. So how do you ensure that your models are up to date and are competitive enough regarding performance and capabilities? And secondly, as Mandar sir mentioned, that these systems often require massive computational resources. So how do you manage the infrastructure requirement and the energy requirements when it comes to these systems?
So you asked two questions, right? How do you keep model? And that's the way pace of innovation, right? GPT came to the fore. Chat GPT came to the fore when it was GPT-3. In September last year? And from GPT 3.0 to 3.5 to 4, right? In about a year, we saw 3 releases, right? And I'm sure similar way Google and Meta and everybody has done multiple releases during that time, right? So the point is, how do you keep the model updated? It's a continuous process. It will need two things. Algorithms would improve, but also data, right? If you have been using Chat GPT, right, it puts a disclaimer that I have knowledge up till 2021 or something like that, right? So what happens is you A, update the model on a continuous basis, but B, you also augment the data so that it is more updated. It's a continuous process. In fact, it will accelerate as we go forward, number one. Number two, how do you support it? It requires huge compute power, right? It requires something called a GPU, right? And that's why currently that is the only limiting factor of AI. How fast, and because of COVID disruption and all that, right? The GPU production is little circumspect, right? As the supply chains normalize, you will see all the big guys investing more and more in data centers and GPUs to make AI available. That's why the point that I made some time back, there are production use cases of Gen AI, but not so much because it is also supply demand. Right? Today that is a little constrained and it's going to become mainstream now. I think the supply chain constraints are reduced. And that is the reason you will see a lot of investment in data center, a lot of investment in GPUs keep on happening. We will do it, but you will see a lot of corporates, enterprises, end users also will do it, right? I don't think there is any alternate to it. The only thing that we are doing to help environment is most of us have now moved to green energy, whether it is Microsoft or Google or others, right? The data centers are largely powered by green energy. We have a mission statement where we are saying we will be carbon neutral this decade. We will be actually sucking out all the carbon that we exposed by, I think, 2040 or 2050. So those are the initiatives to make it green. But I don't think your AI, Gen AI is going to be powered without a lot of data centers and GPUs.
All right, sir. Thank you.
One more point to what Mandar said, but there is another parallel development, because even today there are large language models which are coming on laptops, and today I have a running GPT for all because there is an open source drive on that. The model which GPT everybody is discussing about has a bidirectional transformer, but that is not required for all the tasks. So you can have one side and run many tasks on your desktop as well. So I think like the classic analogy that mainframe was a data center, 4 million very privileged people used to do, and now smartphone, you can have billion selfies going. Like that, large language models will be available on smartphone very soon.
No, I didn't say that the models will not be available. They will run out of data center, but they are going to be accessible to everybody, right? See, the training is where you need the power. Using, you can run it on mobile, you can run it on laptop. That's not a problem. True.
Folks, I think we had a longish panel discussion. Thank you so much. I would like to thank all my panelists for sharing so generously and answering all our questions. And also our keynote speaker, again for sharing so generously, answering our questions, and leaving a lot of food for thought for us today. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
On a lighter note, since we kept referring to ChatGPT and not Bard so much,
Oh, yes.
I just wanted to refer to the contribution that Google has to ChatGPT. The T in ChatGPT stands for Transformers, which was a paper written by Google.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Debbie.
So as we draw the panel discussion to a close, I want to extend sincerest gratitude to our esteemed panelists for sharing their valuable insights and engaging in this enlightening discourse. The Samavesh Information Management Conclave focused on applications of generative AI has truly been transformative, opening doors to boundless possibilities. My heartfelt thanks goes to our esteemed speakers for sharing their valuable time on a Saturday. We are eager to continue the conversation and networking post the event. A special shout out to Samavesh organizing team whose relentless efforts shape this enriching experience. As we move towards the final phase of Information Management Conclave, I'd like to request our keynote speaker Pradeep to join us on stage. Now, I'd like to invite Gunatu Kapoor to hand over the token of appreciation. I would request Anand, Isha, and Samrudh to join us on stage as well. To cherish the memories of our information management conclave, we would like to conclude it by clicking a group photograph. May I request everyone to step forward for the photograph. I request Dean Dr. Varun sir to come on stage for the photograph, and I'm inviting all the faculties to please be on stage as well. Please. So please. I request Samavesh organizing team and information management conclave core team to join us on stage as well for the photograph. Everyone, sir. Everyone. Thank you everyone for being a lovely audience.